Hi everyone, Savannah here, and today we're going to do one of my favorite fair foods, funnel cake. Everything you need is linked in the description down below. That includes my color palette, my template, as well as my free brushes that you're able to download. Let's go ahead and jump in. The first thing we're going to do is change that background color, so select layer, click background layer, and we're going to pick this purple color in that funnel cake color palette. Then we're going to create a new layer, bring it down below the outline layer, grab that blue color, that square blend brush, and we're just going to add in some blue here. It is a little hard to see. The contrast on the screen is a little too bright. I will adjust it, but I also have the image in the bottom left that you can refer to. We're just adding in the color. You can be very rough with it. This brush is pressure sensitive, so the harder you press, the more pigmented it will be. The lighter you press, the more it'll kind of blend with that color that's already there. So we're just really adding some pops of color to this background, adding in some of this blue, adding in some of that reddish orange and some of that purple color. Again, just kind of going through the area. You can blend as you add in these colors, kind of like what I'm doing here, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I kind of kept this a little bit rough, as you can see in that final image. We're just adding in the color, and then we'll work on the other layers here. One thing too, I'll try to talk through what I'm pressing at the top because it did get cut out of this video, and so I'll just try to walk through as best I can without the visuals there. And we're going to just keep adding color here. Those three colors are the main ones we're going to do. We will add a darker purple shadow here for underneath this basket of funnel cake. But again, we're just kind of adding in the background for now, and then we'll work on these other layers here in a second. And one thing you can do to blend it a little bit better is to grab colors in between. So what I'm doing here is just holding my finger down on the screen. That will select that color that you want, and then you can use that to blend out. It's really helpful when you have two very contrasting colors. So let's say the purple and this reddish, orangish, lighter color here. They're very different contrasts, and so grabbing that in between color will blend it even better. It's that middle color between those two, so it's going to blend very nicely with those two different colors. And now go ahead and add a new layer. We're going to do the shadow that's underneath this basket here. So we're going to grab that purple. We're going to go to disc and go a little bit darker with that purple, and then grab that circle brush, outline and fill in the shape of this shadow here. And then we're going to do a Gaussian blur on it in a second. And now that we have that filled, we're going to add in some of these other layers before we do that Gaussian blur. So go ahead and go back into the layers, add a new layer, and we're going to grab this lighter kind of grayish color, and you're going to trace the tray underneath. Again, we'll add details here in a second. We're just kind of placing a lot of the colors first, and then we'll go back through and add details. So go ahead and fill this shape in, and then we'll do the shape above it, which is like that paper that the funnel cake is going to be on. We'll add a detail to it. As you can see, we did red and white checkered pattern on it. So we'll add that detail as well, and then we'll add shadows, highlights, everything towards the end. So we'll go ahead and add that paper. So we'll add a new layer, grab this light gray color, and then same thing, trace and fill in the shape of that paper. And then I'll show you how we do the checkers here in a little bit. And now with that filled in, let's go ahead and just add in the funnel cake as well. So add a new layer. We're going to do this orangish color here, this reddish orange color. And again, just trace and fill in the shape of the funnel cake. We'll add details, so don't worry about it not looking like funnel cake yet. We will add those details in a second. And I usually use a smaller size brush for this, so I'm still using the circle brush, but I make the size smaller. It's much easier to do the outline with a smaller brush than it is with the larger one, just the way that the brushes are created. But once you have that outline, then you can increase the brush size and fill it in a little bit faster. And I do typically keep the outline layer turned off when I fill in because again, that way I can see am I filling in all the spots. Some spots might be hidden underneath the outline, so you might not notice that you didn't fill all the spots in. So it's good to turn that layer off when you're doing this. You can also do that to see the edges to make sure that they are, where you want those edges to be. Make sure there's no kind of issues or anything like that. You can kind of fix it when the outline layer is turned off. Now that we have the basic coloring in, let's go ahead and alpha lock all of those layers and we'll start adding in details to each of these layers. I'm going to start with the paper here that the funnel cake is going to be on, and I'm going to do this red and white checkered pattern. So I'm just going to put in these red squares here. We will do a little bit of color variation, add a little bit darkness to it, some shadows to it, but for now I'm just using that medium dark red orangish color. And I'm going to go through and just manually add in all these red squares. You could create one red square, copy it, and kind of spread out, but I just kind of like doing it one by one. That way they're not all the exact same looking. It is a little bit of variation to this, makes it look a little bit more like you have actually painted and created instead of just copy and pasting. And we're going to just keep doing this until we fill this entire white paper that the funnel cake is resting on. And then, like I mentioned, we'll add details to this. So we'll add some shadowing from the actual funnel cake. We will add some color variation with the red square, so it's not all just the same color. But just keep going through this, adding in these red little squares here for this funnel cake. And as you can see, my square is starting to get a little bit bigger down towards the bottom here. That's okay. This is going to be unique. It's your drawing, so if your squares are not perfectly the same size, that is okay. This is art, is however you want it to look. So that's what I'm going with. I like the look of it still, so I'm just going to keep rolling with this and see what it looks like when it turns out. We can tweak it at the end if we want to, but I'm thinking I'm gonna like this, so I probably won't tweak it much other than adding shadows. And here you can see me, I'm trying to see where this next red square should go because it's going to be too small for this space. It's not going to make it the same size, but again, I just rolled with it. I used this size and I am going to tweak some of this a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit more red to the side here. So I'm going to tweak a little bit of the edge here before we move on to that next step. There, now I'm happy with how that checkered paper turned out. So now we're going to go work on the funnel cake layer. So make sure you turn that outline layer back on because we do want to see kind of where these shapes are going. We're going to grab that darker reddish brown color and we're going to start adding in some shadows here to the funnel cake. We're using that circle blend brush and just kind of as best you can follow the shape here of the funnel cake. So you'll see there's a lot of kind of loops here. We're just going to kind of start going into the different loops here and start adding the shadows. We will lighten it up a little bit by adding that original color back in, adding some highlights, and at the very end, we're adding in all of that powdered sugar on top. So it doesn't need to be perfect. If there's a spot that looks a little weird to you, you can always cover it with that powdered sugar. So don't worry about it too much. Just start adding in the shadows here. Again, we will add in some highlights, maybe a few darker tones here and there. But for now, we're just kind of going through here, darkening some of the spots to outline it a little bit more so we can see visually where these loops are kind of happening, and then we'll lighten it up a little bit with that original color. And I understand this is a little bit tedious, but I promise you the look in the end is going to be fantastic. It's going to look like funnel cake that has been deep fried to deliciousness. So keep working through this, adding in those shadows, and I promise it will look good in the end. And we're getting closer to finishing the general shapes. This middle section here in the center, I did not add any color to because that's where the majority of that powdered sugar is going to do. So I'm not going to do the work there when it's going to get hidden anyways. So I'm just going to keep working on this little section here. And then, like I said, I'm going to grab that original color that we used to fill the general shape. I'm going to grab that color, still using that circle blend brush, and go over a lot of this to lighten up some of these areas, add more definition to it. The other thing that you can do at this point is turn that outline layer off so you can start taking a look and see how does your funnel cake look? Are there any edges that you need to fix? Is it looking, a little too messy in some spots? That's the time you want to kind of touch it up. So I'm using that original color here to kind of blend out between that dark and that lighter color and to lighten it up a little bit. It looks like this funnel cake was deep fried for a little bit too long. So we want to lighten it up a little bit. It wants that, you want that golden crispy color. So we're lightening it up and just kind of blending in a little bit more with that dark color to that lighter color. And if you need to go back in with that darker color, feel free to do so as well. Again, we're just kind of building up the colors here, building it up a little bit more like it's this golden deep fried deliciousness. But if you want to darken, so some of these areas I did want to darken a little bit. So I'm going back in with that darker red to just deepen that color a little bit. I'm not going all over because I still want to keep it pretty light, but I'm going into some spots just to darken that just a smidgen. And I'm mainly kind of darkening the bottom layers here, especially towards the outer edges, just because that's where some of these shadows are going to be with the different layers on top of it. It's going to be a little bit darker underneath. The upper area is going to be a little bit lighter. So I'm trying to go a little lighter, presses towards the top. So it's still kind of blending it out, but not too dark as it is at the bottom. And it's just a lot of going between these two colors, blending it out, making sure that it is looking how you want it to look. If it's too dark in some areas, grab that lighter color, lighten it up a little bit. If it's too light, grab that darker color. So a lot of this is just kind of adding in this color, taking a step back, taking a look and see from afar, does it look like funnel cake to me? If it does, great, we're gonna move on to the next section. So it looks good to me here. I'm gonna add a new layer, grab that white. I'm still using that circle blend brush and I'm just gonna start filling in a lot of this white powder here for that powdered sugar. So add in the white in this main center section here first, and then we'll add some powder to the sides of it as well. And I'm just kind of tracing around where on the outline layer this is, and then I'm going to turn the outline layer off so that I can see where I want to add it. You can keep the outline layer on if you want to, but I think at this point it's easier to see without that outline layer on. And so now I'm just going to fill in a lot of this. I'm just kind of doing short little dashes here for that powdered sugar just to kind of fill in that space. And you'll see, especially as I go further down the sides here, what I mean by that. But I'm just doing these short little, like I said, sketch marks kind of things for that powdered sugar. I'm going to start adding it a lot to different areas after I fill in kind of these main sections that I pre-planned of where I wanted that powdered sugar. But again, feel free to turn that outline layer off. It will help for you to see where your uh, funnel cake edit up so you could add in that powdered sugar based on what your drawing looks like. And feel free to add as much or as little powdered sugar as you want to your funnel cake. I always love a lot of powdered sugar on my funnel cake, so I'm going a little bit more heavy. If you're not that way, you can go a little bit lighter. Just make sure you're kind of, placing it where maybe if there's an area on the funnel cake that you want to cover up, be strategic with that. Otherwise, you can always go back down to that funnel cake layer and modify it after you've added that powdered sugar in. And now that I think I'm good on the funnel cake, I do want to add some powdered sugar to the paper as well because there's going to be powdered sugar that falls off of this funnel cake. So go ahead and add in some of that. Again, go as heavy or as light as you want for that powdered sugar, but let's go ahead and place some of that on the paper here as well. And now with that, I'm going to actually duplicate the funnel cake layer and this powdered sugar layer. And I'm going to merge down one of those funnel cake layers with the powdered sugar because I'm going to use this as a shadow. So bring that layer we just merged below both the powdered sugar and funnel cake, set it to alpha lock, and we're going to grab the dark red color and go a little bit darker and fill that layer. Once that's filled, click that arrow and bring it down a little bit, that layer that we just filled, and then turn that opacity layer down. We don't want it to be so dark against the paper here, but we want it to be dark enough that we can see. So that's why we turn that opacity layer down. And now go to that purple shadow layer. We're going to do the Gaussian blur on it. So go ahead and click into adjustments, click Gaussian blur, and then slide it to the side. One thing I did want to change a little bit is that funnel cake. So in that same setting area, there's a hue, saturation, and brightness. I want it to be a little bit more yellow. And so that's what I'm going through here. If you're happy with the coloring, you can keep as is, but I just want to change that coloring just a little bit, which is what I'm doing in this stage. I want it to be a little bit more yellow golden color for that funnel cake. It was just kind of getting a little too dark for me, so that's where I did it. Just brightened it up here. And now we're going to work on the tray. So grab that lighter white color, grab that circle blend brush, and we're going to add white towards the center here so it looks like it has a little bit of an edge. The edge will be that gray color that we selected before. It's hard to see here. That's why I have the reference image in the bottom left. And I'll adjust the coloring here towards the end of this video. I didn't realize it was off a little bit until then, but what we're going to do now is duplicate the paper layer that we have. This is going to be the shadow. Use that same dark color that we used for the other shadow. Same thing, set to alpha lock, fill the layer, and we're going to use that for the shadow against the tray. And then one thing you can do is set to clipping mask. So with the clipping mask, it's going to, because it is above the tray layer, it's going to be confined to the shape of the tray. So it's only going to be a shadow on the tray. Then I just changed that blend mode to multiply. You turn the opacity layer down a little bit. It doesn't have to be so dark, but usually with my shadow layers, I'll do the blend mode for multiply, and then I'll turn that opacity down a little bit. Now create a new layer above the paper layer that we have here. Set it to clipping mask so that it's confined to that paper layer. And we're going to grab that really dark red color. I'm filling in where the shadow is going to be here with that red color. I do set that blend mode to multiply, and then I add a little bit more color here. You'll see here in a second. But we want to add a little bit of shadow to this paper, and this is going to give it also a little bit of variation with that red and white. It's going to make it look like there's more interest there. So we're gonna just keep adding in some of this dark. You can use again because we're using that circle blend brush. It's pressure sensitive, so in some areas you can go a little bit lighter, like I'm doing here. In some areas you can go a little bit darker by just the press of the Apple Pencil to the screen. So the harder you press, the more that pigment's going to show. The lighter you press, the lighter it's going to be. And then I did do a Gaussian blur on the paper shadow here that's on the tray. You can do that if you want, just make sure that it's not set to alpha lock, otherwise it won't do anything. So just turn that off before you do that. And then the last thing I want to do is add some shadows to the actual funnel cake as well. We kind of manually added them in, but I want an overall shadow to it. So on that layer, I'm going to actually do a new layer above it, set that to clipping mask. I'm using this dark red color and that circle blend brush. That new layer also, I'm setting the blend mode to multiply, and then I'm just adding in some dark shadows here and there. If you go too dark, which I did in some of these areas, you can grab the erase brush. I use soft a brush to erase, and you can lighten it up that way. And there we have our final funnel cake drawing. Thank you so much for sketching along with me today. I hope you had as much fun as I did. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to like and subscribe for future videos that I have. Otherwise, I'll see everybody in the next video.